Today's episode is sponsored by Ellie, E-L-L-I-I.
Ellie is one of the world's leading content libraries for English language teachers, with thousands of ready-made lessons and flashcards and hundreds of videos that you can use to complement your own curriculum or use as your main source of materials.
Ellie is run by a team of former English teachers, dedicated to creating content that engages your language learners.
If you're an independent teacher or paying for your materials out of pocket, we invite you to use our podcast's exclusive discount code Think-Aloud to save 15% off your first membership term. That's THINKALOUD.
And if you're an administrator looking to buy for your whole program, just reach out to the fine folks at Ellie to inquire about a 2-month free trial to test it out for your organization. And don't forget to mention who sent you, your friends at the Teacher Think-Aloud Podcast.
Head to ellie.com today. That's ELLII.com.
Hello, and welcome to the Teacher Think-Aloud Podcast, a podcast for reflective practice for teachers of English around the world. I'm your co-host, Shay.
And I'm Anna.
And today, we're talking about a topic that sparks a lot of curiosity and questions. What does it really mean to be a digital nomad in ELT?
You've probably seen the glossy Instagram images, laptops on beaches, scenic co-working spaces, cappuccinos with a view. But what's behind the posts? What are the trade-offs, the logistics, the realities?
In this episode, we sit down with teacher trainer, materials writer, sketchnoter, and remote work expert Emily Bryson. She shares what life is like on the road, from creative workspaces to navigating burnout, budgeting, and digital loneliness.
We also talk about building a sustainable freelance career, how quote-unquote passive income is almost never passive, and what it takes to work in a way that honors both your teaching goals and your sense of adventure.
Whether you're dreaming of working from abroad or just curious about the nomadic lifestyle, there's something here for everyone, especially if you're trying to blend flexibility, purpose, and practicality in your teaching life.
So grab your favorite coffee or tea, find a cozy corner, and join us for a conversation that's as grounded as it is inspiring.
Let's do it. Let's jump right in here.
Yeah. All right. Well, Emily, let's start with, I guess, the easy question. Could you tell us your name, your pronouns, and a one-liner about your current roles? I don't know if role is the right word, but
my multiple hats. I'm Emily Bryson, and my pronouns are she, her. I provide training for English language teachers with a visual twist. A lot of visual thinking and visual thinking courses, resources, etc. on my website.
Lovely.
Yeah. I love the visual twist.
Yeah. You can add a visual twist to anything, like adding a little touch of magic. Bring classes to life, training sessions to life.
Yeah.
Okay, well, so Emily, if you've listened to any of our podcast episodes, you know that we always start with a little icebreaker question. So, knowing that you are a digital nomad, what is the oddest makeshift workstation that you've worked on?
That's a good question.
Funnily enough, right now I'm working in quite a strange place. I'm sitting on a coffee table with a propped up coffee table with my laptop on it right now, because there's only one table in the place that we're staying. But also I have worked from an ironing board, and actually ironing boards are pretty good because they can become pretty good standing desks, and you can set them to your chair height, etc. So yeah,
That's
ironing
fantastic.
boards, upturned coffee tables, all sorts of strange things.
I like it.
I really like that. Yeah. Well, that kind of gets us into the intricacies of being a digital nomad. So I'd love to just dive in with what inspired you to take your ELT work on the road and embrace this nomadic lifestyle.
Hey, well, my husband and I went to Latin America in 2004 after my first year of teaching in South Korea, and we absolutely loved it. And then that just got us completely addicted to Latin America. We went back to Mexico on one of my teacher's holidays. We went on our honeymoon to Colombia. And then my college were looking to downsize after I was there for maybe 16 years, and they were offering packages of voluntary severance. And I thought long and hard about it because I really loved my students, I really loved my team, but also I had been writing books for companies like National Geographic Learning, I'd been blogging for Ellie, I'd been delivering teacher training sessions online. So a lot of my work was remote. And actually, it was quite hard to balance the teaching and all the remote work. So it felt like life was giving me this opportunity and pushing me gently in a direction to get me out of my comfort zone and to try something magical and new. So yeah, I felt like it was just the right moment to take it. So yeah, here we are. And yeah, haven't looked back.
I love that. Sometimes the universe gives us a sign and we have to pay attention, right?
Yeah, it's like a gentle nudge, really.
Yeah, and I love that it really is so organic that it's not just a sudden, oh, I'm just done with this, I'm going to transition and do something completely different, but you really kind of had the building blocks simmering for a while, and so it was very gradual. I think that that's an important point with a lot of career transitions is they aren't always this stark moment. I mean, they are, but they also don't just come out of nowhere. They take a lot of thought and prior development, I suppose.
Yeah. And like actually in hindsight, I think that was the moment I'd been waiting for. Like I think I'd been working towards having a career that was self-sufficient so that when that opportunity did arrive, because it's very common in further education in Scotland to have these opportunities to take voluntary redundancy, and they're brilliant opportunities when they come around.
Great. Yeah, and it is challenging, I think, to set yourself up to travel full-time like you are.
Yeah.
I have been splitting my time between the States and different projects, primarily in Asia, for the last couple of years, and, balancing my work online with Bridge and with teacher training and the podcast.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden I have a 5-week intensive writing course in China. It's really hard to juggle.
Lovely.
It's a lot of fun
Hybrid
and it's worth
life.
it, but it's really hard. I think that a lot of people think like, oh, Shay's off traveling. What does she do for a living? I think that there are a lot of misconceptions around this sort of hybrid or fully nomadic lifestyle. So could you speak a little bit to some of the misconceptions that people have about working remotely while traveling?
Yeah. So I think the biggest one for me is, and it might just be my family teasing me, but I think my family are absolutely convinced that I am just lying on the beach, reading books, not doing anything. And the reality is that I've actually been getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning to deliver webinars in a different time zone where it's like not 4 o'clock in the morning. I've written, I think it's something like 3 or 4 books this year, creating all sorts of resource packs, creating a lot of content, writing blog posts, etc. So, so it's not, and also I think people think that it's easy, and it's not always easy. Like, for example, I would prefer not to be working from an upturned coffee table. It can be quite stressful looking for accommodation that has 2 workspaces because my husband's obviously working as well. And also, you get so fed up of searching online for accommodation. It used to be really nice looking at accommodation for holidays and, oh, that looks really nice. And now it's constant. Where are we going in 2 weeks' time? Where are we going next month? We need to always be looking and researching and reading travel blogs and finding out, is it practical to get from that place to that place? And then you've got to turn down things like, for example, when we were in Argentina, we didn't go as far south as Fitzroy. And I've wanted to climb that hill and in that area for ages, but the accommodation there was really expensive for accommodation that had good Wi-Fi and like private spaces. So we had to say no this time round, and we'll do it another time and treat it like a holiday. But yeah, just the time schedules that I had and the webinars that I had booked and deadlines that I had, it just didn't fit. So you have to say no to things like that. And then your friends come to visit you and they're in holiday mode. And you have to up your game or to take a holiday when your friends come to visit.
Which is not so easy for a freelancer, right?
No. Yeah, because especially if you like dropping the ball on social media means that your kind of algorithm slows and kind of always got to be checking in on social media, I think.
Yeah.
And keeping your marketing going, your marketing emails, etc.
Absolutely. I mean, basically what you're saying is you work all the time.
And at weird times.
And so, yeah, the misconception
Yeah.
is really the opposite, right? You're working
Yeah.
a lot, maybe, I mean, in a more flexible way, perhaps, but also not in a way you're thinking about it a lot more. And I think, you know, that point about having to plan where you're going next, but also I was thinking, you know, you also have to adapt to the new place. So when you get to a new place, you have to figure out where the grocery store is, where you're going to get a haircut. You know, there's just so many little details of life that I'm sure you've gotten very good at figuring out, but it's another layer of logistics that you have to handle.
Yeah. And actually getting a haircut is, it's so valuable. I've had so many terrible
That's a great
haircuts
haircut that you
this
have
year.
right now.
It is.
I do now. I got really lucky. I've had really lucky haircuts, and like one Panama City, the guy gave me an undercut at the back and it's only just grown out. So yeah, when I go back to my hairdresser of 20 years, my good friend, when I get back to Glasgow, I'm going to get him to take pictures of my hair. So that is always the way I like it.
That's
awesome.
a misconception. You
Yeah.
can't always get the same kind of haircut or the same quality haircut when
No,
you're
you-
traveling. Yeah.
Yeah. Your best friend cannot
Yep.
cut your hair.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
Emily, I want to ask
Yeah.
you, I think when a lot of people think about being a digital nomad, I think that they try to think about packing in as much as possible.
Yeah.
Can you just tell us how often you're moving around when you are actively traveling?
So we prefer to be in a place for about a month because that gives us time to see the things that we want to see, to be relaxed, to maybe get to know some local people, just to settle in and to get into focus space. Because when you first arrive somewhere, you don't want to sit down and open your laptop. When you first arrive, you've got like child in a sweet shop kind of excitement. You want to go and see the beach. You want to climb the volcano
What
nearby.
can I eat? Like, what is the local delicacy?
Yeah, what can I
That's
eat?
always my first question.
Exactly. That's another challenge, actually, is not eating too much because obviously when you arrive somewhere, you've got to try the tostones. Oh, you've got to try this. You've got to try that. And it can feel, eating in restaurants is not good for your health every single day. So you really need to rein it back. And my husband and I have got into the habit of like sharing a main meal when we go to restaurants now. Because otherwise, yeah, it's just not
So
good for you.
much. Yeah. So I like that you also said, you know, just to make connections there too. The fact that you try to plan it so that you're there for just long enough to not just be I mean, you're always going to be a tourist at some level, but not just stay in that mode of, okay, I'm trying to see all these things, but to make connections with people that you meet there. That's kind of your motivation for the length of time.
Yeah, because the best places we've been have been places where we've met people, and actually we've learned book the cabin at the bottom of someone's garden, because often, like, we've made some good friends. I went running with the owner of the house in Mendoza every other morning. We made friends with the family in Chaiten that we stayed with, and actually connecting with English language teachers. Like, I know a lot of people from LinkedIn, and I'll send them a message to say, you live in Peru, right? Or you live in Argentina, right? We're going to be in this area. Are you going to be around? And I feel like you wouldn't get that from other industries.
Yeah.
So I think, English language teaching is a very friendly industry and people are always wanting to network. And like, for example, I went to Peru Tisol when I was in Arequipa. We actually stayed in Arequipa longer. We booked more time in Arequipa, not only because it's a lovely city, but also because Peru Tisol was happening 3 weeks later. So we loitered to go so I could go to that conference. And that meant that I met lots of lovely people who are now friends for life, who invited me for dinner at their house in Lima, for example, or took me out for like classic meals, antojitos in Lima, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah.
So,
I'm having flashbacks. I lived in Arequipa for a month and I had a great view of the volcano Misti from my workstation. That was a
so
great
nice.
workstation.
Yeah.
And I lived in Mendoza for a year.
Yeah.
I did my fellowship there.
Did you?
Yeah, I was there in 2017. It's a very
lovely.
special place. Lots of good wine and
it's
delicious
beautiful.
meat if you eat it.
Oh,
Well,
yeah.
speaking of
Yeah.
connections, what is happening here? Not just physical connections, but also digital connections. So,
Yeah. That's the thing also. I feel like I know more and more people online. It's probably started with the pandemic. And now it's like snowballing, especially now that I'm traveling. I guess sometimes it can be quite lonely. But if
mm,
you've got those connections online, then that kind of staves off
Yeah.
the digital loneliness in a way because you can connect with others online.
absolutely. That's
Yeah.
the beauty of our very interconnected world, I would say.
Yeah.
I loved how Emily emphasized staying connected digitally.
Mm.
Being a digital nomad can get really lonely really quickly.
It made me think about how much those little online relationships through LinkedIn, conferences, even casual collaborations can actually be lifelines when you're far from home.
It's a good reminder that professional networking isn't just about career opportunities.
Mm.
It can also be about building a community that travels with you in a way.
Maybe this is something worth considering if you're thinking of taking your show on the road, so to speak. Consider how you might combat the isolation that working as a digital nomad might bring. I've been there. You miss your comfort snacks and you miss your people.
So you've really built a very diverse income stream. I mean,
Yeah.
you kind of touched upon a few of those from materials writing, teacher training. Tell us a little bit about, and maybe this isn't possible to answer because it's different every week, but could you tell us what your week might look like and how you balance all of these different projects, revenue sources?
Yeah. Well, the beauty of being an ELT freelancer is with multiple hats. So yeah, I've got my writing, teacher training, sketchnoting, visually recording web conferences,
Mm,
what else? Creating visual thinking materials, blogging for Ellie as well. It all depends what the deadlines are.
hmm
So, like for example, if I know that I've got a webinar coming up next week, then I will be preparing for that.
hmm
Or if I've got a deadline, if I'm working on a book, it can often be quite focused. So, like, I'll maybe give 2, 3 months of just deep focus just to that and kind of leave other things to the
hmm
side, say no to other projects. But generally, yeah, it does change every week. Like, for example, Global Teachers Festival for Macmillan got up at 3:30 in the morning to deliver a webinar at 4 o'clock.
Ooh, mm,
That was quite intense, but also very worth it because I love delivering that.
yeah.
Actually, because of time zones, I find that my meetings are often in the morning. So,
hmm
like now it's like 9 o'clock here.
hmm
But I think for deep working, it's better to get your deep work done first and then do the meetings. So, like if I was in Scotland, I would
mm
have the meetings in the afternoon after I'd already had a few hours
hmm
of writing or blogging or creating things.
Yeah.
So,
Well, you're really touching upon something that Shay and I have talked about with each other a lot, which is how do we stay productive? How do we channel our focus in the
mm,
right direction at the right
mm.
time, right? I
Yeah.
mean, you're mentioning the mornings being good for that focused work. Some
Yeah.
people, maybe that's not how it
Like
works for
1
Mm.
them.
p.m. is my brain's like, all right, I'm online. I'll
Right.
give you 4 hours and
Really?
that's it. Yeah, I need like the sort of ramp up time to really get into focus mode.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Whereas I'm
Yeah.
also the morning is where all of my ideas happen. But also you mentioned taking 3 months to really be in focus mode on
Yeah, yeah.
a bigger project like a book project. I mean, I think it takes a lot of self-awareness as a freelancer, as a digital nomad to be able to maximize your time as best as you can.
Yeah, like now I've kind of got into the habit of waking up at 6 a.m. because that's
hmm
one of the other pet peeves of holiday accommodation we're always in is curtains. They never have good
Oh.
curtains. So I wake up really early now because the light comes in. Even with my eye mask, I'm a
hmm
very light sleeper. But it does mean that I get up early and then I get quite a lot done before my first meeting at 8 or 9 o'clock, for example. And
hmm
then I started to work in the evenings because we're at the age now that we're not quite so keen on going out and partying and in the evenings. So kind of in the evenings we're in the house. Yeah, we'll go out and do something in the afternoon, like go for
hmm
lunch, go to the beach, go for a big
hmm
long walk.
Yeah.
Well, I'm thinking that anyone who's listening and wanting to do this sort of nomadic lifestyle, they really have to have, I think, two things come to mind first: time management skills and
Uh-huh.
discipline. right? Like being a freelancer means that like you may not have one single boss who's saying like, this is the time that I need you to be online. And you really need to say like no to the fun things that are around you sometimes. And, you know, this is my working time.
Yeah. And we don't tend to do all the touristy tours. Like we pick and choose those because if we did every single touristy tour for like $100 every time, we'd be home by now. So yeah, we'll go to a place and like maybe do the things that local people would do, kind of thing, rather than putting our tourist hat on.
Yeah. So that's another skill, budgeting. Let's add that to the list. Yeah.
Yes,
And decision
budgeting.
making, making hard decisions, right?
Yeah. And actually, my husband thankfully makes a lot of those and does a lot of the accommodation searches and logistics because I think my brain would explode if it wasn't for him.
Yeah. And doing logistical things like that is so different from like the deep work when you're writing. And so to kind of get out of that brain space must be challenging too.
Yeah. And it can be quite hard finding like travel information. Like not all bus timetables are online and those kind of things. It can really take some digging and talking to the people in the area and that kind of sourcing to find how's the best way to get places. Like that's a full-time job in itself.
Right.
Which is why staying longer, because you need longer to find out how to do things.
And less planning is involved when you're not moving around as much.
Exactly. And actually the traveling part is the bit that costs the most money, like the transport. So if you stay somewhere for longer, you're not paying for like the overnight bus, like every few days kind of thing.
One thing I don't think we talk about enough is the hidden labor behind nomadic living.
Yes, like spending hours finding decent Wi-Fi, juggling rental logistics, figuring out new grocery stores, transportation, all the things you don't see on someone's Instagram highlights.
It really reframes digital nomadism as not just an adventure, but a second job in planning, budgeting, and constant troubleshooting, it seems.
Right. It does raise the question, could this hidden workload eventually lead to burnout if people aren't careful about how they structure their travel?
I'm going to answer your question because I've been there. It's a resounding yes from me. This episode is being released as I enter phase 2 of my specialist assignment with the U.S. State Department. And honestly, I'm feeling pretty beat up.
I bet.
and that's, you know, orchestrated travel, mostly with people behind the scenes securing my lodging, at least recommending it, and transportation.
Right. But then, you know, on the flip side, I remember when you were traveling in Peru for 3 months a few years ago now, I think. It was a while back now. And it wasn't easy for you to work and to record episodes then, that's for sure.
Don't I know it? Don't worry, Anna. I think I'm slowing down a bit now.
Yeah, right. You've said that before.
Well, what Emily shared really resonated for me. Being able to work remotely anywhere in the world doesn't look like it would if you were just working from your own home. There's so much that we take for granted in our day-to-day that becomes so much more complicated when you're working from a more temporary home.
So budgeting is important. And on the topic of money,
nice segue. Yeah.
Since we're here, you know, many teachers dream of earning this passive income. You know, I write a book, I get royalties from that. But what really is the reality behind this term? Does passive income exist in your world?
I think it's a myth. Basically, if you're talking about passive income, I am very good at writing books. I am very good at creating online courses. I am very good at creating sketch notes. I am very good at creating downloadable resource packs. That's where I'm a content creator in that way. I am learning to get better at marketing because you can't just create. Writing the book is the easy part for me anyway. Actually telling people that it exists and telling people why it's great and how it's going to change their lives, that's a completely different skill. And
Yeah.
I'm so guilty of this. Like, for example, I set up a Teachers Pay Teachers page a few months ago.
Mm-hmm.
Haven't really told anybody about it.
Mm-hmm.
Like, nobody knows it
Well, now you
exists.
are.
Nobody
Now
knows
you
it's
are.
there.
Mm-hmm.
I'm telling people about it. Passive income equals learning to market and learning to sell and
Mm-hmm.
creating an email list and sending emails and building your following on social media. And that all takes a lot of time. So
Mm-hmm.
there's nothing passive about passive income at all.
Mm-hmm.
Apart from maybe investments, if you like invest in like an index fund or property, for example, I would
Mm-hmm.
say as
Mm-hmm.
passive income, those work. But yeah, books and online courses, etc., that equals marketing.
Yeah, well, this is our cue to become financially literate and learn how to invest, I suppose.
Yeah, yeah,
The marketing side of things, as we know what this podcast is,
It's
quite
the most
a
challenging
beast,
part,
so.
I think. You know, the conversations, the
Getting the word
ideas, they
out.
come pretty easily. You know, the interviews are really fun, but
yeah,
then, you know, the hard work is really just like, oh man, doing the research about advertising and how do we craft our message and
yeah.
what's working, what's not, why does everything take so long, right? Like,
Yeah, yeah. I feel like even things like posting on Instagram, like you take a picture and then you write the post and then you realize that you haven't tagged someone in it, so you need to go and edit it. Or you didn't add the right audio. Yeah, and then you've got to download the reel to like post it on LinkedIn and that take like an hour. And and then you think, is that hour of my time worth it? Or would it have been more valuable for me to reach out to my current network and ask them for work? Like
Right.
say, I'm available now, rather than I think people call social media like spray and pray marketing. You hope that people see it because I think actually only 1% of people that are following you actually see your posts.
Right.
So having an email list or just reaching out directly to contacts that you already have is probably more valuable.
Yeah.
But
Yeah,
at the same time, you still need to have an online presence. So spending an hour writing an Instagram post. And for me, like a lot of my posts are doodled. So like I have to like doodle and create the video and then edit the video and then post it. And well, yeah.
Yeah, there are a lot of steps. It's not just, oh, let me just put
Yeah.
something online. It's, okay, let me plan the entire thing. I think that's just a really good thing to bring up for anyone who is considering digital nomad life, you know, considering the kinds of projects you do and the kinds of income streams that you are interested in pursuing is just what do I want to spend my time on? Is this
Yeah.
additional marketing layer something else that I feel that I have the skill set and the bandwidth to spend time on? So I'm glad that you're bringing up that this passive income doesn't exist and that there's this whole other layer to the freelance and particular content creation side of things.
Yeah. Yeah. Like I know a lot of, for example, materials writers, editors who have very limited online presence, but they're always busy because they just reach out to other people that they've worked with in the past and say, I've got some availability. And then the people that they've worked with before will ask around or give them some work. And
Yeah.
I sometimes wonder if life would be much easier if I just did that. But I think I'm not the kind of person that I think I like having lots of different things
I
going
think it
on.
does depend on what kind of work you want to do also, and whether you want most of your projects to be with familiar people and companies, or if you're
Yeah.
trying to branch out and really make an international splash, for example.
Yeah.
You know, that part about passive income really made me pause. I think a lot of people dream about writing a course or a book and then just watching the money roll in.
Right. But what Emily shared is so important. Creating the product is only step one. Marketing it, maintaining it, building a whole infrastructure around it, that's the real work.
Exactly. Passive income isn't passive. It's a full-time marketing job unless you already have a huge platform, which honestly most people don't.
Well, we've sort of touched on this a little bit. Let's talk about what makes a place a remote, friendly workplace for an ELT professional. And if you could also maybe tell us a little bit about sort of tools and apps and other resources that have been essential for you in this journey.
Okay. So accommodation itself, having not just one but two workspaces because quite often it can be my husband and I fighting over the kitchen table. Who gets it on what time? And then one of us in the bedroom sitting on a coffee table with another propped up table. What else? I've got this like little traveling lavalier mic, and I have like a ring light for lighting, etc. But yeah, for lighting here, I use my head torch and my bike light.
Nice.
I brought my bike light for whenever I rent bikes. I have never actually used it as a bike light because I'm always back before dark. It's good to have, and it's been good as like a table lamp when, for example, some places don't have one.
Yeah.
And good to shine on me for when I don't have the right natural light coming in. I've got a Huion drawing tablet that I connect to my laptop to give me a second screen. So, like, for example, when I'm working on a writing project, you can have the brief open, you can have the document you're writing on open, you can have multiple tabs on your screen open, you can have 2 or 3 PDFs open at the same time. I quite often have the Huion tablet connected in split screen mode and my laptop connected in split screen mode. So I've got like 4 little mini screens. Yeah, without the second screen, I would really struggle, I think.
Can't live without it.
For conferences, I've got this tiny little pair of shoes. I should have had them ready for you, actually. It's the kind of shoes that you get for weddings, for like when you've been wearing high heels for too long. They're kind of marketed as that, like the kind of shoes that fit in your handbag. So, like, for example, when I was speaking at the Anglo conference in Uruguay, I brought those because otherwise I've only got a pair of flip-flops and my trainers, which I use for walking, hiking, and wouldn't really look great in a conference setting. So yeah, those have been handy. And a coffee filter. It's like a kind of muslin sock type thing on a circular frame because not everywhere has coffee making facilities. Depending on the country, we find it very much depends on the country how much they like coffee.
Of course.
But that's been invaluable and it takes up so little space. Everything's got to be multi-purpose. Yeah.
You're making me think of just what it's like to go backpack camping and how you need to pack for that and how you need to make everything fit into a single backpack that you carry up a mountain.
Yeah, like I've got like a tennis skirt, which has like 2 zip pockets. Zip pockets are invaluable, I think, for traveling. But it's like quite outdoorsy, so it's good for hiking, etc. But also I could totally get away with wearing it to a conference. It's like just a plain black skirt.
Right.
So I'm learning what kind of clothes are useful.
Yeah. Well, this just makes me think that, you need to be packing to be prepared for everything in multi-purpose items. Thank you for sharing kind of the logistics of what it means to be a digital nomad, because it's hard to grasp all of the details unless you're in that situation, right? So I think that having this advice up front would be very, very useful.
So what other advice do you have for teachers who are trying to move into this nomadic space?
I think, well, for teachers, English language teaching has always been the go-to. Oh, you want to travel? You're an addiction to traveling? Okay, English language teaching.
Right.
Like, for example, I started out in Poland at a summer school, and then South Korea for a year, and then I got stuck in Glasgow not stuck, it was great, working at the college for many, many years. But I think there's a lot of people in English language teaching who move around a lot. Maybe they do 1 year in Dubai, for example, and another year in China, and then 6-month contract in Argentina, that kind of thing. So there are face-to-face jobs that you can do that involve lots of traveling as well. But have a look online teaching. Think like business coaches, for example, like Ola Kowalska or Rachel Roberts. Are really useful to follow in terms of getting contracts for private online tutoring, etc. Or just building up your business doing other things. I've actually written a blog post for Ellie on how to be an ELT nomad, but also there's another one on like how to make passive income, even though we've talked about how it's not passive income. But yeah, some little ideas of things, because actually, although passive income isn't really passive, it's been a good motivation for me to build up my social media presence, because I don't think I would be so active on social media if I wasn't trying to, for example, get gigs sketchnoting web conferences or sell my online courses or sell my resource packs, that kind of thing. Building your social media presence means that people come to you asking if you want to work with them. I don't necessarily need to look for work anymore. It kind of finds me because my presence is quite strong, and that takes the pressure off a lot. But at the
Yeah.
same time, it's quite stressful getting to that place by posting a lot on socials.
It takes time.
Well, step by step. Yes,
Yeah,
exactly.
it's all balance. And actually, yeah, that's one thing about being a digital nomad is I feel like my life is more balanced now. I think I put life first and
Oh,
work
nice.
after because I know that there's all these exciting things that I could be doing. And so if I'm working on something for myself that doesn't necessarily have a deadline for another client, for example, I'll decide, oh yeah, no, it's definitely time to go for that walk now. I could definitely leave
Yeah.
that for a little bit. Whereas in Scotland, if it's cold and wet and rainy and dark in January, then I don't really have anything else to do, so I might as well be working. And actually, I've joked to my friends that sometimes digital nomad life can feel a bit like lockdown because you get somewhere and you don't know anybody, and then it can, because it's quite isolating and all you're doing is like getting up in the morning, you've got your routine, you maybe do a bit of exercise, then you do some online work, and then you have lunch, and then you go for a walk, and then you come back and maybe do a bit more work. Just like feels like lockdown mode again in some ways.
Absolutely.
And then in the end, your socializing is like with your sister over Zoom, for example.
Right. I do appreciate also that what you emphasized before of the ways that you are able to stay connected digitally,
Yes.
but also finding connections locally in the places that you stay and going to these ELT conferences in different places. I mean, I'm sure that it feels like being shut in, not shut in, of course, but not having as much connection, feeling that sense of isolation when you get to a new place initially. But it sounds like you're very adept at building community quickly.
Yeah. Like in 2004, when we were first traveling around Latin America, we wouldn't have been able to stay connected. We had to send emails to our parents to stay in touch. We had to go and find a locatorio, like a telephone, internet cafe type thing,
Yes,
to
cafes.
phone and like pay lots of money or more than we wanted to have a 5-minute conversation with my parents, kind of thing. That has changed for the better for sure. Much
Yeah.
easier now.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. I think you've given us so many wonderful ideas and things that I hadn't really thought about or that I needed to dust off in my mind. If you have any other things that you wanted to touch upon that we didn't have a chance to ask you.
I, as a writer, have been writing a book. Now, not an English language teaching book, but a book about my experiences traveling whilst working remotely from an English language teaching perspective, but also from the perspective of somebody who's very socially aware. Like, I'm very aware that my passport, like, for example, I taught people seeking refuge for many years to get to my English language classes in Glasgow, not to, for the safety of Glasgow first, and then to my English language classes. They had these horrible stories of like being in a small boat crossing the channel to the UK, hanging under the undercarriage of buses through your lorries through Europe, being in the back of refrigerated vans for hours on end to cross borders. And then all I need to do is take my passport and a bit of cash and I can travel. I'm also traveling on a European salary. So a lot of the places that we go to, people don't have that same ability to travel. Like, for example, if I go to one country, they might not have reciprocal arrangements to come to, like, for example, a 90-day tourist visa might not be possible. So I'm writing a book about more socially aware aspects of traveling and being a digital nomad, like climate crisis, for example, as well. Like seeing the Amazon on fire was quite traumatic for me. Every single place that I have visited, people have said this is not normal for this time of year, this weather, plastic pollution from the ocean, that kind of thing. So yeah, writing a book from that kind of angle. I don't know when it's going to be out. I don't know when I'm going to finish it, but it's in progress.
Oh, that sounds amazing. I'm excited for your book now.
Oh, thanks. So am I. Just need to finish writing it along with all the other million things that I'm working on.
Yes, of course.
Great. I really appreciated that Emily didn't shy away from talking about privilege, about how easy it is for some of us to travel compared to others.
Yeah, it's so important, especially when you think about how teachers often work with students whose experiences of mobility are so drastically different.
It's such a necessary reminder. Just because we can travel freely doesn't mean we should forget the bigger context. Climate change, borders, inequality.
What a journey.
Oof, it really was. I appreciate how Emily peeled back the curtain on the realities of life as an ELT nomad. There's a lot of behind the scenes labor involved in making this kind of career work.
Absolutely. And I think this conversation reminded us that working remotely as a language educator takes so much more than just a decent Wi Fi connection. It takes planning, flexibility, and a really intentional approach to both your professional goals and personal well being.
So, if you're listening to this and you're thinking about taking your work on the road, here's something to reflect on. What kind of structures do you need in place to protect your time, your income, and your energy while traveling?
Or maybe you're someone who's already experimenting with hybrid or remote work. How are you setting boundaries? What's helped you feel most connected to your community, to your learners, and to your why?
Yes. Thanks again to Emily for this thoughtful and open conversation. We hope it gives you a realistic and inspiring glimpse into what's possible when you mix wanderlust with a strong professional foundation.
Yes, thank you, Emily. And listeners, if you found this episode helpful or inspiring, we'd love it if you shared it with a friend or a colleague.
And or leave us a review wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah.
That's the best way to keep the conversation going and help other teachers find us.
And if you're feeling especially generous, you can even support the show by buying us a coffee at buymeacoffee.com/thinkaloudpod. You'll find the link in the show notes too.
We've also linked some related episodes in there, along with some links to help you find the wonderful Emily Bryson's work if you haven't Googled her already.
Thanks so much for spending time with us today on the Teacher Think Aloud podcast. Until next time, happy teaching
and happy reflecting.